Hello everyone, and welcome to a developer blog from the folks at Army Game Studio. My name is Kartigan. We are here to talk about how we handled PlayStation controller input. The first thing we're going to talk about is the aiming axis. Where you want to start is with your dead zones. The default dead zone is going to be an axial dead zone. It's a cross-shape pattern. But your more adept players are going to be able to feel out the areas in between the cross, so we really don't recommend that. We recommend you use a radial dead zone, and in fact we would recommend you use a scaled radial dead zone. And what that means is that your values coming out of the dead zone start at 0 and slowly increment outward, versus starting at 0 within the dead zone itself. Now, when we started designing how we were going to use this axis, we basically came up with several other zones. We'll start in the middle with the dead zone. And just outside of that, we have an area that we call the aiming zone. It's a very low speed. It's meant for precision aiming, your long-range engagements, and your medium-range engagements is meant for fine-tuning what the aim assist is helping you with. The area around that is your looking area. That's the largest area of the axis. And it's meant for finding your targets, seeing moving objects. So your speed is moderate, and it gives you good situational awareness. And then we have a very small area on the outside of the axis that's for turning. And that is very high speed, and it's to more simulate what you get out of a mouse when you move it quickly. Lets you respond to those sudden situations. One of the best debug tools that we came up with was showing the input. This is our debug tool, and what we're doing is we're outputting every piece of math that the aiming axis goes through in the engine. So you can see I'm looking around here. I'm in my center area where I'm aiming, and then I'm in my outer area where I'm looking, and then we have our high speed area on the edges. Kind of see where all the values are kicking around there. The outer high speed area is not meant to work like a regular aiming axis. It's just meant to do that one function, just turning like that. That's the best way that we came up with, was showing every step of the process to the design team and letting them repeatedly adjust the config files and see all their inputs and outputs and what was going on. Let's talk about aim assist. Let's just start with the whole picture, right? So this is our aim assist, and we're going to go through each and every one of these parts, okay?
Let's get moving.
This is a quick look at what aim assist is doing. We're going to go through this step by step. So what were the goals of our aim assist? We wanted to have engagement types. So basically we identified near engagements. We identified our medium distance, which our medium distance is our primary engagement type for most of our maps, especially on the PlayStation. And then we have far engagements. We do still get some follow at distance, but as you get to your more extreme distances, it won't follow as much. And it does vary by weapon as well. Let me show you that too. Especially your scoped weapons. You'll see the scoped weapon doesn't nearly follow at all. It does a little bit. And that was intentional. Another thing to note about scoped weapons, real quick while we're here, is you notice our turn speed here is pretty low. And that was actually put in as a balance. Scoped weapons are pretty heavy. You can't really turn them around at warp speed like you can in an assault rifle. And this gives us a way to give players at a distance more of a chance as well. If you start cutting perpendicular lines to your distance shooters, you'll have more of a chance. Alright, so that's our engagement distances. So another goal of our aim assist system was to be as invisible as possible. And now obviously, when you're looking at this test level, and we have stationary targets, you're really going to see the aim assist. But when you play it on the console, everybody's moving around, running. It's nowhere near as transparent as it is here.
Let's get moving.
Okay, so let's show you the targeting system. So you can see here where
Get me out of here.
a pawn is targeted, and it's telling you which one is targeted
Get moving.
by the green line.
Let's get moving.
There's two ways to do your targeting. You can do local or world.
Get me out
And
of
if you
here.
do local, it's going to be based on your screen. And what I mean by that is basically your 2D flat screen. You can target an object in that realm, or you can target an object actually in the game itself. We went with world calculations. They're a bit more expensive, but
Get me out of here.
that gave us that engagement distance that we were looking for. If you go with a local, like a 2D aim assist system, you're really not going to get different distance differentiation. You can get size differentiation, but not as good on the distance.
Let's get moving.
You can see when it targets an object, there's some white boxes on it. So these white boxes are bones, and are already built in the model, so it's just an easy targeting point to use. You don't really want to target each individual triangle on a model, especially not in an older engine like this.
Help.
Just a lot of expense involved. So we grab our target, and then we grab our nearest bone on the target. Now you're also going to see our floating box. That teal box is actually the actual target point of the aim assist, and basically interpolates between the bones. So you can see it slowly float between the bones, and I'm going to explain that to you here in a minute. But another thing to note about targeting is it's based on the percent of the model that's visible. So depending on how much of the model you can see here in the upper left, we can only see a small portion of the model in the bushes here, but you can't see enough of it. And you can kind of see where the system turns on and off.
Let's get moving.
Alright, so another thing to note is you don't want to do targeting every frame. It's a fairly expensive operation to grab a new target. Once again, that may not be as true for more modern engines, but for Unreal Engine 3, it does have some expense associated with it. So we don't target every frame. So you can see how it bounces between targets a little bit, but it doesn't bounce between them that quickly, and that's why.
Help. Get me out of here.
Alright, now let me go through this floating box a little bit more. So a lot of the reason behind the floating box implementation is this pawn back here. So you can see it kind of floats around in a little bit of a strange way, and the reasoning behind that was we do have a lot of situations in the game where you can go prone and look under an object and shoot at people's feet. And I really don't want to lose that experience with the aim assist. When we were doing direct bone targeting without the floating, basically balloon point, you'd really lose this, and you'd get a lot of camera jitter, kind of like this, while it was targeting it, because it's trying to follow bones that were constantly moving. So what that box does, it has two purposes. It allows a situation like this, but it also takes away a lot of the bounciness that would otherwise be in the aim assist.
Get me out of here.
Now if I just move, you have to be moving for aim assist to work. That's something interesting to note. That way if you're standing still, that you can't tell that there's aim assist working. Now here, you'll notice on the controller, I'm just moving myself left and right. My pawn rotation is actually being controlled by the aim assist system. And we get a nice smooth movement like that. So that's why we have that floating target point like that. You'll notice that it does a better job than snapping to those bones. Once again, we wanted to keep the system invisible, but really help you out. Alright, so let's talk about something a lot of other games do. They do tend to do something called bullet magnetism, and that's when you fire, those bullets will curve slightly. That works for some games, usually with slower projectiles. Another thing other games will do is they'll make the projectiles very, very large. Ours are not. Ours are very small. And those are just two choices we made for the feel of our game, basically. We tried a bullet magnetism approach, and we tried larger bullets, but to us, whenever we got downs during playtesting, we wanted the downs to feel like you earned it. And with those systems turned on, we got a lot of feedback, which wasn't unexpected, that people didn't feel like they were earning their shots. They would, look at them and they was like, that didn't feel good. Alright, so now let's talk about some aim adhesion. So aim adhesion for us is what we talked about a little bit earlier. So you move around, and it gives you a little bit of rotation on your pawn. Right? That's now some automatic aim access adjustments. So you can see here, I'm just walking left and right. But you see I'm turning left and right as well. So I'm walking straight back here, I'm walking straight forward here. You can see it turning itself. That's what we call aim adhesion. The next thing I want to talk about is aim friction. So aim friction is the game slowing down your rotational speed when you're on a target. You can really see it here, especially up close. So playtesting, in playtesting, we found that close range engagements like this were very, very difficult for all the developers. They're aiming to make a super casual, well, not even super casual, just to go for the more casual player. Somebody who doesn't have 100 hours to put in the game a week, So you can see here, you really get a strong aim of friction, and this is all going to be based on distance.
Help! Get me out of here!
So you can see it start to kick in here. This is based on our engagement ranges. And you can see it slightly here, especially your more adept players can see it at this range. But this is our primary engagement range, so only a little bit of friction at this range. The main help with friction is, once again, if you run across somebody like this. And you can see it's a help, and it's also a hindrance of a sort. We tried to make it so that aim adhesion really kicks in when you're targeting and when the shot is going to hit. But there is a slight area around the pawn where it kicks in. And it looks strange here. It's much less exaggerated when you're playing a game and people are running around.
Let's get moving!
Once again, this is our test area, and what we found was everything here is exaggerated. Alright, so the next system we want to talk about is the aim snap.
Let's get moving!
And this is pretty much universally used whenever aim assist, or whenever you're playing on a console.
Let's get moving!
So the trick to snapping to headshots is to be above and then pull up your snap, right? So all I'm doing here is I have it above, I go to aim, and that's when our snap kicks in. Now something I want to call to notice is in the top left of the screen there, it says aim snap strength. So your aim snap strength for us recharges over time. We found that a lot of other games allow you to constantly snap. And by giving that recharge strength, you don't get a lot of snap, right? But when you use it with purpose, you have a lot of strength to it. It's a nice smooth movement to your target. And it helps you get there real quick. It's also why we went for an aim down sights as a toggle by default for the controller. You can change that, but we don't recommend it. See the recharge and see it snap. It doesn't get you all the way there. So that's the other interesting thing here is based on your distance, you don't want the aim snap to get you all the way there.
Get moving.
You want it to, for the most part, to get you where you'll hit, but when the player is aiming along with the aim assist system, typically what you'll find is they'll snap and they'll aim at the same time. So about where you want to use your aiming zone, like we described. And if they're using that and the snap, then they're going to get a nice target. And let's just take a quick moment and talk about debug tools for something like this. You really want to make debug tools. The engineer working on this and the designer designing it can probably get by without the debugging tools. But when you start to need to explain it to other people, your executive producer, for example, it's very difficult to explain things in words for a system like this. But once you show it to them and you say, hey, here's targeting, here's the floating point, the balloon that you're actually targeting, you can see it interpolates between the bones so that you have a nice floating aim location. It just becomes really easy to explain with a debug system. Well, this has been a developer blog from the folks at Arm Game Studio. We are very happy to be able to show you this, and we thank you very much for playing the game.